recording and
Oh, I'm glad you guys are here, and hello to April.
all right.
Bonjour.
Hello, everyone. Miigwech, thank you so much for joining us for the 25th anniversary celebration of the Center for Native American Studies. I'll be your moderator for this evening's directors panel. My name is Bazil Panik. I'm a senior studying Native American Studies at NMU here. Looking forward to graduating in May. In honor of the land that Northern Michigan University exists on, we're going to start off with a land acknowledgement. Kiwedinong Michigan, Kinumage, Gomigong, Aya, Giti, Anishinaabe, Guakim, Anishinaabe, Swiss, Shkode, Akim, Gichiname, Benizibing, Ijinakade, Anishinaabe, Moaning, Marquette. Northern Michigan University is located on the ancestral homelands of the Anishinaabe Three Fires Confederacy. Gichiname, Benizibing is the traditional name of Marquette. We collectively acknowledge that Northern Michigan University occupies the ancestral, traditional, and contemporary lands of the Anishinaabe Three Fires Confederacy. This recognition of ongoing colonization provides context for a common future of decolonization, vibrancy, and vitality. Miigwech Bizindalie, thank you all for listening to that land acknowledgement. So I've had the honor of working with the people who are here before you. Miigwech for joining us, and Miigwech April. This director's panel will provide them the opportunity to share the space and share some stories of their tenure as past and present directors of the Center for Native American Studies at NMU. I'm joined by Dr. Martin Reinhardt, director from 2001 to 2005, April Lindela on Zoom there, director from 2015 to 2019, and Amber Morsaw, current director of the Center for Native American Studies since 2020. I would also like to acknowledge the first director of the center who could not join us this evening, Dr. Dennis Tibbetts. He served as the director at the center from 1996 to 2000. He impacted the first generation of NAS scholars at NMU. At this time, I would like to share a few words that Dr. Tibbetts shared with the center in his article for the 25th anniversary special edition of Anishinaabe News regarding the moccasin blessing he instituted in his tenure. Over the years, I observed that being welcomed by a group of people who were invested in your success could make a difference in how new students obtained a sense of belonging. I believed that a welcoming that included those who are new students, returning students, and having people could provide that sense of belonging. While there is importance in feeling a sense of community, I believe members of that community need to be invested in the success and the well-being of the members in that community. The moccasin blessing was a ceremony that I hoped would touch people and illustrate we were all pulling for one another. Recruiting tribal students to the academy is only part of our ongoing goal for equity. Creating a presence with our voices is at the heart of the academy, becoming inclusive. This type of equity translates into tenured positions, administrators, students, and the curriculum. The Native American presence in the curriculum dispels the concept that we are a people who only existed in the past. Instead, that concept is replaced by our own stories, by our own tenured professors, and a new generation of tribal students. The center has created a presence for Indigenous people in the academy that gives voice to our history, our language, our humor, as well as our struggles. I am humbled to have had a role in developing that voice. Miigwech Dennis Tibbetts for your words and for your work to increase equity in the academy.
Miigwech.
I'd like to share some quick housekeeping items. This session will include about 40 minutes of a moderated panel discussion, and we'll be leaving 15 to 20 minutes for audience question and answer. We ask that you leave your questions until the end and type them in the chat. All right, let's get started.
All right.
All right.
First, I want to
Just a quick correction.
Yeah.
April was actually director from 2005.
2005.
Yeah.
Wow.
She's been here a long time.
Just a recent anniversary for working for NMU as well, right, April?
Yes, I just passed my 29th year at NMU.
Congratulations.
Congrats.
Thank you.
All right. First, I want to give you all the agency to give your own introductions. So, Marty, I think we'll start with you.
Gwech, Buju, Babanang Meshe Kyak Kyak Dishnakaz, Bawating Don Jaba, Ajajak and Dodem, Shnabe Ojibwe and Ao. My name is Marty Reinhardt. A lot of people know me as Marty, and our family comes from the Twin Sault area, a place we call Bawating, or place of the Rapids, over at the eastern end of the Upper Peninsula. And, we made our way over here back in 2001, Tina and I. My wife Tina, who's watching, and our daughters Nimi and Dabi. So we're very happy to be part of this community.
Which are Marty, Amber?
Buju, Amber Morson, Dijnakas, Michike, and Dodam, Potawatomi, and Dao, Pokaganik, and Devon Douglas. My name is Amber Morsaw. I'm a Pokagon Band citizen, Potawatomi. So my people are originally from the Dowagiac and Hartford area, but I actually grew up just outside of Ann Arbor. And also to my family, who is from the eastern side of the state, my partner Dominic and my son Dakota. Thank you guys for watching. Miigwech, I love you.
Awesome. April, if you could introduce yourself now as well.
Sure, Buju, Sego, April Lindala, and Dishnakas, Makanado Dam. My name is April Lindala, and I am very pleased to be here. Just really kind of overwhelmed a little bit with emotion, so give me a second. I am the daughter of Dorothy Elizabeth Moses Kelly. She is my adopted mom, and she was born and raised on the Grand River Six Nations Reserve, of which I do have status. My father is Samuel Paul Kelly, who was raised in the Detroit area. They have both passed on, and yeah, it's just a pleasure to be here tonight. And I've been working on putting together a little bit of a slideshow. And as a result, when you go through all your photo albums and you're reflecting on pictures and memories, it kind of like fills you up a little bit with emotion. So I kind of forecasted that might be the case for me. So that's why I'm not bawling on the couch right now between Amber and Marty. So miigwech.
So miigwech, April. Yeah, personally, I just want to say miigwech to April, Marty, and Amber for just everything they've provided me. My last 4 years here have been pretty amazing because of all of you. So
Well, it's been amazing having you here too. Likewise.
Yeah. So it's really an honor to moderate this session tonight. Looking forward to it. We got our Kleenexes too.
Somewhere around here.
Oh, they're right there. Okay. Just in case. All right, so whoever is compelled to share first can feel free, but tell me about your academic origins or background that led you to your first interactions with the Center for Native American Studies. Additionally, what are some of your earliest memories or experiences with CNAS?
I'll defer to you
Whoever's
guys.
compelled.
I'm gonna do traditional style. Our elders go first.
April?
Oh, that's me then.
Uh-oh.
Do we have to explain to everybody why I'm the one going first?
Sure.
Because I'm 10 days older than Marty.
Elder.
10 days, that's it. All right, so I'm wondering if this would be okay time to share some of the presentation. I don't have to share all of it now, but it would make sense to do that if it's okay.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Right on.
I'm excited to
Okay,
see the
good.
photos.
Thank you for everyone for your patience. Can I get a thumbs up from somebody, whether you can see my screen?
Definitely. Yep.
Okay, great. All right, so thanks everyone for everything here to make this possible. I just want to, let's see, how do I go forward on a PowerPoint? Sorry, I can't.
Use your down button.
Oh, thanks, Marty. All right. So miigwech to our elders who have guided all of us to be where we are today, and miigwech for all of you in the audience, and miigwech to all of you also for your graciousness for any mistakes I may make. It's obviously I'm human and I'm doing my best, but I want to open with a statement of gratitude to miigwech to the countless mentors, allies, friends, those of us who helped to build and make our humble center at NMU a success. No one person can do this work alone. So even though it's a director's panel, all of us, I think, as directors realize that there is a mountain of people around us that support us in doing all this work. And since Bazile asked about the beginnings, I wanted to take a moment to introduce and acknowledge the grandmothers of Native American Studies at Northern Michigan University. On the left is Dr. Melissa Hearn, who taught in the English department, and on the right is Professor Lillian Heldreth. There were a number of faculty teaching independently Native American Studies classes in history and art and anthropology and in English. But it was really the drive from Melissa Hearn and a lot of support from Lillian that they wanted to put together a minor and propose a minor in 1991. And so these two, some of us that have been around for a long time recognize them as our grandmothers of getting the program started. So some of the early days, the folks on this Marty, look at Marty. Okay, so some of the pictures on this screen, you guys can't see it, can you? All right, so this screen includes our first language faculty member who was hired in 93, 94. I don't have a picture from 93, 94, but Donald Trosa. Lots of people in this region know Donald. And then Dennis Tibbetts and I are pictured on the top right there. So that's a picture of Dennis. And I worked for him as a Native American admissions counselor for a couple of years. And it was a real honor to see both of these gentlemen really kind of help with the very, very beginnings of what the program and the center were about. The bottom picture, I want to acknowledge that between Dennis Tibbetts' time and Marty's time, we did have 1 year where Leanna Loonsfoot served as interim director. And then Marty started, was that July of 01 or something? I can't remember. Yeah, July of 01, I think, is when he started. So yeah, so that's an early picture. One of the first pictures probably in the new facility, because you started in Majors Hall, didn't you?
Right.
And then moved over here into Whitman. Yeah, so the big dream catcher, obviously a symbol that's been with our center for, since Marty started. So those are some of the early days. And I'll stop there for right now because I could just keep going, but I'll try to go in between a little bit here and there to break it up.
English, April. Yeah, it's good to see those photos and some baby pictures of Marty as well.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that brings back a lot of memories.
Yeah, maybe Marty will go with you then for your academic origins or background that led you to the first interactions. What are your earliest memories?
So, before I ever came here, April and I knew each other. April's been friends of my wife's family for years. And April and I actually worked together when I was at Central Michigan University, and she was here at Northern. And we would see each other at conferences and be part of the same circles. But in 2000, I actually heard about the position opening up here at Northern Michigan University. And I applied. I was working on my PhD at the time out at Penn State in the American Indian Leadership Program. And I was working 3 jobs. And boy, I'll tell you what, the prospect of working one job was really nice. I was a adjunct professor over at Lake Superior State University, 7th generation program coordinator, and working with the Michigan Rural Systemic Initiative, and no time to do anything. Oh my gosh, it was crazy. But I remember coming here and being interviewed and how impressed I was with the folks that I interviewed with. And, there's one person, Julie Snyder, who, she's passed on. And she was part of that group that interviewed me. And she was a matriarch of this area. She's St. Marie tribe, Crane clan, same name as my daughter, traditional name as my daughter, Bidaban. And she was someone who I really looked up to. I had worked with Julie before in other capacities in my previous jobs. And so when I came here and she interviewed me, I was really intimidated, but at the same time, very calm, because I knew she was part of this. And then, knowing some of the other folks here, I I was really excited about the prospect. When I got the call that I'd actually been hired for the position, I was out at Penn State. We were at the 30th, I think it was 30th or 40th reunion of all the Penn State alumni. And I got that call and I was like, oh my gosh, you guys are going to believe this. You know, so it was a really good time. And I came back to here to NMU, you know, after we got the job. And this is just a really important story, so I don't want to belabor it, but I started, you know, as April said, July 1st, 2001. And the summer was really calm. You know, it was really kind of getting my feet wet and trying to get to know the university, starting to hang out and, you know, learn about this community. And started thinking about, you know, what to do with the Native American Studies minor, the center. But, you know, on September 11th, 2001, I went over to Cohotus Hall to drop some paperwork off. And when I walked in there, into academic affairs, the staff were huddled around a television. And I was like, oh, what's going on? And they were like, you're not going to believe this. And I was like, what? Well, the first plane had crashed into the first tower. And I was just stunned. I was like, oh my gosh, that's terrible. You know, and while I was there, the second plane crashed into the second tower. And at that point, my heart just sank. I remember that feeling so vividly. And I just remember being so uncertain about what was happening in our world. And I just wanted to call Tina and check on her and the girls and make sure they were safe. That's a really important part of my beginning here, because immediately, you know, after we kind of realized what was happening, the Native folks on campus, we wanted to get together and smudge and have ceremony for those people. And it was something that we weren't able to do here on campus at that time. We couldn't have open fires. We couldn't smudge. It just hadn't happened on our campus at that point in time that we could do those things. So we went to April's house and we did it over there. And, you know, that's, I'm going to stop right there because, you know, we have a lot to cover this evening, but it was a very important moment, I think, for all of us, you know, that we knew that there were things happening in our world that we needed to address here on our campus, from a Native perspective.
Yeah, I think even early on, it speaks to that community that was provided by the beginnings of the center with going over to April's house, and that's what it looks like today as well. So Amber, if you want to share some origins or your earliest memories.
Yeah. So when I graduated in 2018, you know, I had started the job search, and one of the non-negotiables of my search is I wanted to work with Native students. This was something that was really important to me because I did not have the kind of support that I wanted to give to other students when I was at my alma mater. And so, you know, in my search, I wasn't really able to find anything in Michigan because there wasn't like a recruitment position or, you know, entry level position for a young professional like myself. So I actually ended up out in South Dakota, where I started at SDSU, South Dakota State University, as the Native American Recruitment Coordinator. And then shortly after that, I found out I was pregnant with my son and wanted to be home a lot more, because being a recruiter, you were on the road all the time. And I got to see some of the most beautiful sights out there in the Dakotas. My favorite memory is watching the sunrise come over the Badlands. That will always stick with me for sure. So probably about 6 or 7 months into being the new program coordinator for the American Indian Student Center out there, we went into lockdown. We went into the global pandemic, March 2019. Everybody remembers that. I had a 5-month-old baby, and my partner and I, you know, we were really uncertain about what was going to happen. You know, at the time, both of our grandparents were still with us, and we just felt that we needed to be closer to home, which was a really tough decision because I love my students out there. But, you know, given the uncertainty, as you were just saying, Marty, it was time to come home. And I thought it was just going to be the most challenging experience to find a job in the middle of a global pandemic. but, creator must have shown down on me and had his hand out, and this position was available. And so I applied and interviewed, and this is, I always tell everybody that I'm so grateful to be in this space. You all are the ones that were able to bring me home. And so, starting this position in a global pandemic really presented some interesting dynamics as new leadership. But one thing that I definitely felt that, really, really said that you are going to be a part of something great here. You're going to have that family. You're going to have the support that you've always looked for, no matter which side of the country you were on, was when I came in. And at the time, I had never met April before. She wasn't at any of the interviews or anything like that, but I come into the office for the first time. I think it was like July or something after I started. And April's like, okay, come on, I'll give you a tour. And I was like, oh, okay, that'd be great, because I got lost in Whitman the first couple of days I was in here wandering around the education wing. So April took me on the tour, and I had no idea that right across the hall, where Whitman Commons is we have this beautiful canoe that you all created for the Reimagine STEM summer program. But above that, you have all of the tribal flags. And I'm probably gonna get emotional because every time I talk about this, I do. But seeing those flags up there meant more to me than all of my professional years working in the field, because those flags represented up there, and seeing the Pokagon band flag on that wall said that you have a space here, you belong here, and that is the greatest welcome I think I could have ever received. So miigwech everyone for bringing me home.
We're glad you chose us.
Mhm. Good. So in your tenure as directors, April, I think we'll go to you for this first one, especially if you have more photos to share. But what are some of the projects that you implemented that you're the most proud of?
Yeah, this is probably the most difficult question to answer. And then I realized I didn't really even talk about my starting as a director, but that's okay. Yeah, I do have more photos, and I kind of want to, I hope let's see, come on. I'm trying to get to the next picture. There we go. I think it's important that Marty shared that story about 9/11. And Marty, I don't know if you can see this picture or not.
Yeah.
I suspect, I think if you look at the people involved and look at what's not there, I believe that is our first event at the fire site.
I think you're right.
There's no benches and there's no protective covering over the pit. And
Yeah, that
from
was our
all of the
first fire
pictures
there.
that I could dig through, I think this is the first official fire site event.
Yeah. Boy, look at all those people.
Yeah. You were talking about Julie. She's right there in the red skirt, eh?
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. Our provost was there, Fred Joyle. Our dean was there, Terry Setoff. Our students at the time, Michael Lukanen, of course, very, big supporter of Native studies over in the sociology department. So, yeah, I mean, this was, and then of course, Scott with the drum, what a great way to welcome that space. And that space exists because of Marty's work after what happened to us with 9/11, right? Because we didn't want to say we have to go to somebody's house anymore. And Amber, this for me is kind of one of those times that I felt like we're making space at NMU for Native peoples, right? So this picture to me is indicative of that act of claiming literally space on campus on our terms, right?
Yeah.
And that's when Marty was a director, and yeah, that's a great memory for me kind of coming up on that. So I wanted to show this one. This is a little bit later, but I think this is the first time the Eagle staff came out.
Yeah, I
So
think
Marty
you're right,
is
too.
the, I think Marty is the keeper of the Tribal Education Department's National Assembly Eagle staff. And we've been very distinctly honored as Marty is the caretaker of that staff to have it at our events. And yeah, so I wanted to draw those two distinct memories out because I think both of those are reminders, our reminders, however you say that, that we need to make space and we may need to make ourselves visible on our terms. And those are two ways to do that. Marty and I, as he mentioned, we've worked a lot together over the years, and this is actually one of the early, well, not early. I have actually photos with Marty with a ponytail, but I didn't dig those out. I didn't drop those. I didn't drop those in, but I can verify he had a ponytail back in the day. One of our camps that we did, and also remembering that the lake is what is so a driving force for me. That amazing water and fresh source of life that we get the privilege to working so close to here on the South Shore of the Big Lake. And when we have the chance to host programs and guests, we always want to take them up there.
That was the camp that Dobby was in.
Like, wasn't Dobby in every camp?
Yeah, pretty much.
Even when she was too young, she was still in the camp. She was all of our helpers. So yeah, I think for myself, some of the major, touch points for me and memorable touch points for me include publishing Voice on the Water. Grace Shalier was the editor, and I was fortunate enough to be project leader and co-editor. That was very huge. Of course, next to Amber as our cover of that on the table there, so you can see it. Voice on the Water just celebrated its 10th anniversary as a publication through NMU Press. Certainly working alongside Marty on the DDP. I'm not going to steal your thunder there, Marty, but I'll just say it was an honor to do that and be a part of that whole amazing project that has a life of its own well beyond those starting years. I am, also proud of the College Prep Medicine Wheel Academy. I have a couple of photos that I can share later on with that. Ada Deer coming to speak as our commencement speaker. I have some pictures of that. And for those of you who don't know Ada Deer, she was key leader in the Menominee Territory to their rights as a tribe were terminated under the termination policy era. And Ada Deer was a strong force in making sure that their people were recognized and that termination was eliminated, right? So they were recognized again, and it was all because of lumber in the North Woods of Wisconsin. And so we had the distinct honor 10 years ago of hosting her as our commencement speaker. The list goes on and on. We've hosted so many amazing people. Marty already mentioned Keith Sokola. We've had Wayne Fernandez. We've had Robin Wall Kimmerer. And yeah, like I said, the list goes on and on. But I think for myself, one of the things as far as a program that I most am proud of and appreciate the support that I received was implementing an elders and residents program and having elders come on campus for multiple days and visit classes, hold lectures, hold art classes, depending on who they were, and really working with other areas on campus to have those elders visit not just Native Studies classes, but visit other classes, like whether it be in the School of Art and Design, whether it be in the social work area, whatever, we could be doing to build those collaborative efforts across the academy. And so that's a program that I'm particularly excited about and proud of as I look back. So, but I'm going to take a break and share the airspace with my colleagues. So I'll pass it on.
Good, April.
And Marty, what are some of the projects that you implemented that you're most proud of?
Well, we've talked about the fire site, and that was major. I truly believe, I tell people that, in Western society, they talk about a cornerstone of these buildings, right, as being the beginning. I think for us, in our communities, it's always a center stone. And those center stones come from our center fire. And that's really important. I think it put us on a path of decolonizing or revitalizing our culture here. It put us it recentered us on our path, I should say. Path had been laid long ago by our ancestors, but I think it helped us to try to recenter ourselves. So that was pretty major. The relationship that we have with the Tribal Education Department's National Assembly is really important. We were the first university to be recognized by them as having a program that met what they would consider the standards for teaching about tribal education departments. And that's pretty important, for thinking about the relationship rebuilding between Indigenous and non-Indigenous communities. Those tribal education departments, although many of them are still gaining in capacity and they need a lot of resource help, they are where sovereignty meets education. And for us as Indigenous people, that's a really important relationship. As April mentioned, the Decolonizing Diet Project, by far, oh my gosh, that project took us in so many directions and has done so much. It truly has taken on a life of its own. We started off with that idea as part of the First Nations food taster. We were down at the Jacobetti kitchen and just making food and having conversations. And this question just was in the back of my mind, is would our ancestors, if they were here with us today, would they recognize the foods that we're eating as Indigenous foods that they were familiar with? And so that question became a topic of discussion as we were preparing those foods that we were then sharing with people and calling it, a First Nations food taster. So it carried on when we got back here to the center in the weeks and months that followed. And at some point, the question, it turned around in my mind. And, we thought about, would we be able to eat the foods today that our ancestors ate then? And how would we do it? How would we go about that? And eventually it became such a hot topic of discussion around here that we decided to make it a research project. And, we spent a good year and a half preparing for that and thinking about what would it mean to lead a group of people in that activity. So that's what we did. We recruited 27 people. There were 2 alternates and 25 research participants, which we make a very big distinction. I think in Western science research, they often call them subjects. We decided that was too dispassionate and cold for us. We thought participants was a much better word for us to use. And so we did. We prepared 25 of us to have this amazing journey that has given us so much back for what we invested in it. It just continues to impact people's lives, not only the people who were the research participants, but our families, our communities, and way beyond, the whole national Indigenous food sovereignty movement, and maybe even globally. We had people in Canada and Australia and even in Central and South America who have been now part of these conversations and these things that are kind of the offshoots. But yeah, it's amazing that what the Decolonizing Diet Project did. And, I think that's probably for me one of the biggest highlights. But there's another highlight that I think we're probably going to talk about. And again, I don't want to steal April's thunder because, there's this thing called a Native American Studies major that happened, somewhat recently in our history. But that has also been very huge accomplishment for us in the Center for Native American Studies.
Rich, Marty. How about you, Amber? Being the director from 2020 until 2022 now, what's the project that you're most proud of?
So I definitely have to say the 25th anniversary celebration of the center. And not just because it's a celebration of the center, but it's a continuation of the legacy that has been passed down to me by the former directors and the leadership that we've encountered in this center. So, we started off with some words by Dr. Tibbetts, that resonates very heavily with me because I come from a student affairs background. And so, always being here to support the students, in the initiatives that they are starting. The students are really the reason why we have the land acknowledgement sign right outside of Jammer Hall there. And so, being able to support students and continuing to support students in that fashion, and reflecting on that in the time that, that we're here celebrating the 25th celebration together. The First Nations food taster, we weren't able to have that this November because of COVID. And this is something that Marty had really started and continued in his legacy as the director. So this year we did a cooking demonstration, the First Nations food taster demonstration in the Wildcat Den Kitchen, which was a really awesome project. I got to film, I got to listen to Marty talk about what he's passionate about.
That was fun.
We had a blast, and being able to engage with different departments. We created a really great relationship with Chef Alden over there and Chef Derek, and just, having fun doing it too. And then with the limited edition print of Niche News. So April hasn't really talked a whole lot about this yet. Someone put you on the spot, April. April's passion is media, getting the word out there, telling the story and telling an accurate story. And so being able to start up Niche News again, when I first started, that was one of my first big projects, was starting Niche News again. And then being able to compile all the stories and get the student perspective and get faculty stories and include recipes. And, we did a throwback to 2000, I think is what it was called, was April's article that she contributed. And then being able to connect with and share this story from the first director of the Center for Native American Studies, bringing us all together has definitely been my most favorite project so far.
Yeah. That I just want to say that Niche News goes back to students. It is the students, the Native students here at NMU that really led that charge. Way back when there was only 28 Native students on campus that were documented in the whole state of Michigan, and they were right here at Northern Michigan University. And guess what they were doing? Starting one of the largest, and I think maybe the first, national Native student-led newspaper movements in the country. So back in, I think the first issue goes back to 1971, isn't that right?
Correct. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so another milestone last year with that 50th anniversary of the inception of the Anishinaabe News. It had a couple of breaks here and there, but the inception was 1971.
Great. I think in a few minutes, we'll open it up to questions, but I think we'll continue with my questions that I have here. But those of you who are in Zoom, feel free to leave your questions in the chat, and I'll share them with our directors. And then as well, for the people who are watching via Facebook Live, feel free to comment, leave your questions, and I'll share them with the directors. So we discussed, and I'll intersperse them with my questions, but we discussed the NAS major, the fireside, line acknowledgement sign, Anishinaabe News. I think a lot of people from the outside don't see what's going on in your offices, on your laptops until late in the morning, or waking up super early to get these projects done and implemented, and how do we achieve these things. So what are some of the biggest challenges you faced in your directorship, some of the barriers you encountered, but then what learning moments came from that? What solutions have you found, and what were you're coming out of that storm almost?
Yeah, again, I'd like to defer to April to take the first crack at that. I know she's dealt with a lot of issues that, we've been through a lot of these things together, but I want to defer to April.
Well, Marty, you already mentioned the, not being able to smudge on campus with that significant event of all of our lives in 2001. And we worked to, with other areas on campus to have more of an understanding. It's not perfect right now. We have work to do still. But I think that is one thing, just being able to express ourselves in a manner that is honoring of our elders. And we've had to, in essence, kind of make space to do that. And it's not always been easy. I would just straight up say not to say NMU owns a copyright on this, but I will just say in the higher institutions of higher education all over wrestle with issues of racism. And we've had to, certainly field that as well. And so I, want to make sure we're still celebratory with the conversation, but that's a real reality. That's a harsh reality that we don't necessarily get to put away on a shelf because, we're celebrating something, but it's there and it has been there. And I think even along with that, the validity of the discipline of Native American studies it's been a challenge to, say that this has a space and is deserving of a space and should have a space on Anishinaabe King. And I feel that has been probably some of the larger challenges that I have had to navigate. To me, the planning and the getting things done and the hosting guests and the hosting tons of students and the building the major was pretty tough. But I mean,
Yes, it was.
yeah, permeating all of through those programs and through the breadth of, our campus, there are ups and downs of very, very great feelings from our allies and accomplices and very challenging feelings of those moments that, Marty and I know of where we're behind closed doors and I'm just, my fists are in the air going, I can't believe I'm having to contend with this right now, And my other colleagues around campus who've been gracious enough to let me rant behind office doors because I think we are better than this in higher education and we need to be better than this at NMU because of our relationship with the land and the lake in this territory. We need to be putting Native studies at the forefront. And so for me, I think what I have learned and what I hope I communicate to both my students and my colleagues in the community is this sense of tenacity and persistence. Knowing when to take care of yourself too, but having a tenacity and a resistance and a resilience to keep going in the face of such adversity. Because it's not, it is what it is, I guess. And I don't mean to sound whatever about that, but it takes work. And so that's what I would say is I hope that I communicate to my students a sense of both resistance, resilience, as well as glimmers of hope.
Yeah. The idea that we have a lot of firsts here at Northern, we're very proud of our history. I mean, Northern has been a beacon as far as relationship building with tribal communities, unlike any other institution in the state of Michigan. However, there's been a lot of firsts, and the idea that they are first tells you that before that, it didn't exist, right? It was a struggle. It was a challenge. It was a fight.
Mm-hmm.
We wake up every day in a colonized world, and this institution's part of that. So where we're very proud of our relationship and what we've done here, we also know that it's been very difficult. We have had some of the first classes go all the way back to the origins, right? We had the first major, we had the first fireside for a state institution. I'm the first tenured professor in Native American Studies in the history of the state of Michigan. We had the first graduates in Native American Studies as a discipline with a major in the state of Michigan. So all of these things were celebrations, but they were also fights. Everything we did, we had to fight for. And so, it weighs on you. After a while, you get some thick skin and you get maybe a little bit jaded now and then. I know I am, So, I mean, these things are hard-won battles at the same time that they're things that we want to celebrate and be proud of.
See, I gotta follow all this up. I mean, but that's the reality, right? Like what you and April were just discussing. You guys have accomplished a lot in the time that the center has been on this campus, and so much in academia has come from this center, and that's a lot to contend with. This work is definitely very humbling, and I think that's you know, one of the celebrations and the challenges is I get to celebrate a lot of the work that you guys did, but having to keep up with that can exactly be what April was saying is, it weighs on you and it can get kind of heavy and, you know, constantly having to remind yourself that you're human, that you are not this superhuman being and you can't carry it all the time. And, you know, definitely I'm very blessed to be able to work with two of the former directors of the center and being able to look up to that leadership and that mentorship. And certainly having to remember that I do need to learn from you guys and, you know, kind of take it one step at a time. And so I can also contribute to the legacy of the center. Maintaining that is not just the only thing, that it's also doing things in our own way too.
Absolutely.
Great. So coming off of that, what are some words of wisdom for future directors of the Center for Native American Studies that you could offer? How do we continue to fight the good fight?
Well, before we get to that, can I share a few more slides?
Of course, definitely.
I did start sharing and then I realized I'm all rude, just starting to share while Bazile's talking. Sorry, my bad. My bad, dude. All right. Thanks for making some space for these. I, you know, wanted to try to be thoughtful about what I was doing as far as like putting these pictures together, but like I said, it was pretty emotional. So I just kind of wanted to have just a quick showcase of, you know, some of the pictures that we've had and some of the guests that we have had and some of the things that we've taken students to do. As part of student learning, we've taken them, you know, to the woods, to our elders. We've hosted people here of notable accomplishment. You know, I'm not going to go through everybody here on these pictures, but because I have more slides. But yeah, whether we were in the woods or whether we were in the classroom or, you know, regardless of what we were doing, we were always trying to make sure that our students were taking a bit of, you know, that memory of who they are with the earth and interconnected to the earth. You know, that's what we're part of what our, you know, conversation is about within Native American Studies, looking to our elders. As we can see, you know, here's that picture with Ada Deer when she was here 10 years ago. All types of learning that we have, whether again be with elders. In the top right corner, we have Howard and Elizabeth Kimawan over at the DeVos Art Museum, Sugar Bush, down at the bottom right hand side, you know, making moccasins and, you know, doing any kind of expressive arts is so important. And our scholarship, you know, it's just some pictures reflective of the DDP in the early days of the DDP, as well as the cover of Voice on the Water. There's a former copy, like I can't remember, I can't see what year that says, but of the Anishinaabe News when it used to be in print. And then our students with some of the people they've been able to meet and the experiences they've had along the way. We've had visitors from Montana, from Alaska, from Australia, from all over the place. We've been very, very lucky in that regard to be able to host a number of different people from all over. And we have folks who are, you know, we celebrated people who've retired, people who are retiring. We celebrate our times together just as a staff. You know, that's the bowling. Celebrate with song. It's a hand drum contest at one of the powwows. And just lots of memories that we have. And again, it's, I think our major and our center is about the discipline, and we have been extremely fortunate to have a very, very dedicated team of folks at the classroom. Many people don't even realize that some of these faculty are part-timers and were part-timers because they are here and gave so much of their time to the center. And then because we have had some losses in the last year, I wanted to take a moment to reflect and remember people who are from the community who have contributed to us in many ways. John Bailey, our MC at the powwow a few times, just a very gentle, kind-hearted man. Glenn Brissett, notable veteran and community service, always was doing community work here in the Marquette area. George Madash, same thing, just a heart of the size of Canada. That guy was just a sweetheart, George Madash. And then Rich Scarlatti on top is one of mine and Marty's mentors, and he just passed within the last couple of weeks, actually. And a lot of what we did with youth programs wouldn't have happened without him. He's the one we look to help us in making those youth programs successful. And there's our flags that Amber was talking about. And I've always been very proud of being able to have those flags nearby to remind, again, me, the people that we work for, the tribal nations that we work for, and our mantras at the bottom, the gift is in the journey. So I just wanted to take time to remember some of those folks and some of those people, because directors, we have a title, we have a lot of responsibility, but it's a circle of people, right? Just a circle of people that makes it happen. So I just had to share that. As far as advice, I don't know that I could give future directors advice until they're probably in the seat. And I hope I'm doing a good job for Amber for that. So with that, I'll say my gosh for right now.
Good, April. I remember when I was making my exit as director and April was coming in, and I struggled to give April advice, because it's like, I can tell you what I experienced. I can tell you what I did to get by on a daily basis, but we're two different people, and I knew April was going to have her own way of doing things, and I didn't want to overshadow that in any way. I wanted to make sure I was there to support. And, like with Amber, I think that's, April and I think Amber says it's best. We're kind of like an auntie and an uncle, we're trying to be here to support Amber, to do what she's going to do with the center, the direction she's going to take it. We want to help, but we don't want to do it for her, and we don't want to take over. We've been there, done that. It's her time now, and we're here to support. I do think that there is a good piece of advice, though, and that is stay rooted. Stay rooted in our Indigenous cultural traditions, and try to do our best within this colonial institution to make it more reflective of who we are. This is our land. It's always been our land, and that's something that it's never going to change. We'll always have this long, deep spiritual relationship with this place that we call, Mshike Minas, Mshkakumakwe, Mother Earth, Turtle Island, Kichenamebene Zebing, place of the Great Suckerfish River. That'll always be here. And I think as long as we pay attention to that land acknowledgement goes really deep, and it'll give us, the earth, the both human and more than human beings will give us that spiritual energy that we need.
Yeah, my advice would definitely create community for one another, especially when you have a new person coming into this space. That's something that, my auntie April and my uncle Marty over here have definitely created for me with their mentorship and their guidance. And, this is something that I've never really experienced before. So my advice would be definitely to create community for one another. Welcome that person into that space and hold their hand while they're going through this process. Because, it is a big title, but it doesn't seem as big when you have good support behind you.
I don't want to take too much of the space away from the directors, but April, you mentioned the mantra, the gift is in the journey. And I remember one of my earliest memories, I don't want to take the space, but I remember hearing that phrase, the gift is in the journey. I remember one of the earlier drumming sessions where I met Marty for the first time. You were on your sabbatical for the freshman year. And when I heard that the gift is in the journey, I had no idea. I didn't understand what that meant. I just kind of didn't think much of it and didn't understand what the purpose of the gift is in the journey. But as I'm coming into my senior year now, and this last semester, last few months or weeks, I realized that the gift really is in the journey, and this collaboration, this family, these academic elders or advisors that I've had from you all has since my freshman year, I really realized that gift really is in the journey. I just wanted to share that a little bit.
Wedge.
I think we're almost to the end of our time right now. If there are any missing questions from the Zoom chat or Facebook Live, feel free to put those lasting comments in.
While we're waiting for those questions, I just want to say, Bazil, it's been a pleasure watching you grow from the time, I think I can say this for all of us, from the time we met you, now we're watching you get ready to graduate. We're going to miss you, dude. We want you to stick around, but we want you to get out there and do some really cool things that we know you're going to do too. I think it's just that way with our students. We love you guys, and we'll always have this tie. We always love it when you come back and see us and tell us about all your successes and your challenges and share those things with us. So.
And when you come back to be the director, we'll be here for you.
There you go. And we'll have a director's panel again.
For the 40th anniversary.
Definitely. Good. Maybe a quick close up. Where do you see, maybe this isn't such a quick close up, but where do you see the Center for Native American Studies in 7 generations from now, about 140 years?
Can I just say, or at least ask, where'd you get that question, Bazil?
404.
Oh, that's good, April. So this question was inspired
Sounds
by my
familiar.
homework assignments the other semester. Thank you, April.
What do you think, April?
I think that I would love to see the entire such an academic reform that we don't recognize it, that it is completely interconnected with the land and at its core is an indigenous earth ethic that we just wouldn't recognize it, we would be so happy singing and just working with all of the beings of earth to heal it, to make repairs, to come together as community, to feast, to just, if it could be a moment that's where, whether we're powwowing or round dancing or whatever it is, right? We wouldn't recognize it, but we would be really happy in how it has basically infused itself as an indigenous studies, infused itself through all of academia.
Yeah. I would say, be good ancestors. 7 generations from now, when they're celebrating their successes, when they're dealing with their challenges, I want them to look back and maybe watch this video and think, like we do, we look back and see those treaties from about that same space. And we know our ancestors didn't get everything they wanted to in those treaties. We know they're imperfect, but what they did get in has helped us do what we're doing today. It's giving us strength. Their spirit is here with us today. We're drawing on it for the things that we're doing. And it's going to continue like that. So 7 generations from now, when our great-grandchildren's great-grandchildren are sitting here and they're, having whatever kind of interaction they have with higher education in this country, I want them to be proud of what we did for them. And I want them to make their descendants proud of what they do.
And when we were doing the research and kind of doing some quick Indian math right there, like what is 7 generations? What was 7 generations ago? We were talking about how that was just after the Treaty of Fort Laramie.
Yeah.
And
it would be 1882 exactly for if you call a generation 140 years or 7 generations.
Yep, so it was like when the first boarding schools were
Mhm.
starting, and it was a very very dark time for Indian people, right? And looking at how far we've come now, and so I guess that 7 generations in the future, what I would really love to see in education is just what April had said, and a major reform that we don't recognize it anymore. Michigan Indian tuition waiver wouldn't be based on blood quantum. We wouldn't be confined to the 4 walls of a classroom or over Zoom. We're going to be outside, and we're going to be visiting with that lake, and we're going to be having those teachings by the fire sites, and we'd have more than just one fire site, right? Being out in the bush and just kind of learning from one another and learning from our mother, and that's what I'd like to see.
Great job. Is there anything we forgot to discuss before we close up this recording?
Well, I want to just put prayers out there, for things that are going on in our world right now. Much like my entree into Northern Michigan University during 9/11, there's folks over in Ukraine right now and other parts of the world that are dealing with warfare.
Yeah.
And warfare is something that our people, we certainly dealt with. And that was us against the United States, us against the British, so we know that. We know that feeling, and we're still trying to heal from that in this colonized society. So not trying to bring it down, want to, end on a celebratory note, but also being well aware that, these things are happening in our world, and that other indigenous people from other parts of the world are going through some tough times.
Much for that, Marty.
Do you have any final thoughts for us, April?
Yeah.
I just love giving April homework assignments and
Touche, right? I just feel very honored to be, celebrating and remembering going down memory lane this evening with all of you and with our audience. And, this is, yeah, for me, it's, it's, I guess, the equivalent of going through a bunch of photo albums and just kind of sitting back and remembering and thinking of people that you miss and people that you've known and may or may not be with us any longer. And yeah, it was a really interesting journey for me to go through this and put that little slideshow together and share it with all of you. But as far as anything, any final words, I don't have anything profound to say, but I echo Marty's sentiment of remembering all of those in the world who have it less, who are facing adversarial, things that, we can only imagine. And I hope and have good thoughts and prayers for those that are suffering, because it is unfortunate that this type of situation is unfolding right now.
I also echo what Marty and April have said about the folks over in Ukraine. Our thoughts and prayers are definitely with them, and also to the folks that are here at home, and also to our neighbors to the north, our missing and murdered Indigenous women.
Yep.
That's an ongoing issue right now, and certainly we're feeling that also with the boarding schools, those excavations. And I really hope that this panel is celebrating Indigenous studies, Native American studies particularly. Not only are we bringing attention to some of these atrocities that are happening in the world, but definitely being able to celebrate that in an Indigenous way, and being able to call on our ancestors to watch over those folks, and share this space and talk about the work that we were able to do that supports the healing in that aspect. Definitely going forward with our healing, and miigwech, talking about celebration and kind of switching gears a little bit. Miigwech to everyone that was able to support us for the 25th celebration of the Center for Native American Studies. We definitely would not have been able to have this celebration without you. Miigwech to Marty spotted the camera there. Miigwech to Sierra Ayers with Walking the Path Together. She was also another key part to this celebration who was able to offer the medicine bundles that went out to everyone in our celebration boxes. To all the folks that were able to support us with those celebration boxes, Miigwech, the proceeds for that will help celebrate our students in the Learning to Walk Together powwow here in March. So we're really excited for March 26th, which will be one of our next biggest events. So Miigwech for everyone for joining us.
Yeah, and Miigwech, thank you to all the directors, April, Marty, Amber, for serving in this session. I appreciate your words, your insight, and all that you've done for students at Northern Michigan University and all that you continue to do for students here.
Much for moderating.
Miigwech
It's a great
for
job.
moderating.
Of course.
Nasa Ogima, Bazil Panik.
Mhm.
Would you like to close with the closing song?
Yeah, sure.
Close with the closing song and then stop the recording, and then April, if you want to hang out in the Zoom room for a second after.
Yeah.
Yeah. way ya, way ya, way ya, way ya, hey ya, hey ya.
Miigwech.
Good, everybody. Mama, peace. See you
Mama,
later.
peace.
Have a
See
great
you.
evening. Good for
Miigwech,
joining.
April.
Mama.